Hi, I thought it'd been a while since I'd done any videos, and I said I was going to do some videos this year on some of my chess games. So, sadly, I've actually recently got a new job, which has been my time's been limited for this sort of stuff. But I've actually got the day off today, so I thought I'd do something on a game I played last week. It was a game I played against Ian Campbell, who is known as he's a really solid player. It was Padgate A versus Widnes A in Merseyside Division 1. Sorry, Warrington League Division 1. I'm playing in that many divisions at the moment that I can't even remember. And yeah, Ian Campbell, I mean, he's a well-known player. He's actually an arbiter, so you know he's a really nice guy, and he's got a reputation as like a really solid, hard-to-beat player. I think his grade is sort of mid 170s. He's definitely in the 170s. I can't just remember exactly whereabouts he is. I think he's sort of early to mid 170s. So you know, very very strong opponent. So anyway, I was white. I'd been pre-warned before the game. He played the hippo opening. Basically, the game starts. I play e4, so he goes g6. To which I play d4. Bishop g7, bishop e3. My friend Stephen was slightly scathing about this move after the game, saying it's inaccurate. It probably is, but Kasparov has actually played it, so it can't be that bad. and Ian plays d6, it's kind of like a normal modern sort of setup. But as I say, I had been pre-warned that he played the hippopotamus opening. The idea with the hippo is if white's kind of developed naturally, you know, bringing both knights out, and bishop either c4 or d3, and white looks like he's got a great, you know, a really nice position. And in the meantime, you know, black's playing moves like d6, e6, fianchettoing both bishops on g7 and b7. But then suddenly black can sort of lash out with either f5 or c5, and you know, he's basically black's trying to prove that white's position, you know, white's pieces aren't working together very well. So you know, suddenly the game can sort of turn around, and it's sort of designed for white to overpress. You know, if white thinks he's really getting something and gets frustrated and presses too hard. You know, I think it can turn around very quickly with, you know, either c5 or f5. You know, it could be quite dangerous. So anyway, I carried on with knight c3, sort of like a 150 attack sort of setup. Because at the moment it is just like a modern setup, so I can play a usual sort of opening. And he plays a6, which again is a usual sort of move. You know, if I start lashing out on the king side, usually when I play these sort of positions, by the way, I'm not usually. I mean, if they don't do anything, you know, I'll send the h-pawn up the board and try and mate them or something. But usually I try and play it a bit more positionally, because the idea of like a 150 attack isn't just a massacring opening. You know, you can actually play, you know, say if they start playing b5, you know, you can start undermining it with a4 and maybe bring the knight back. And if they play b4, you can play c3, and you can end up with a really nice centre. And they're sort of a bit overexpanded on the queen side. So anyway, he plays a6, so I just played knight f3. Sometimes in these sort of positions I do play a classical sort of h3, you know, to stop any plans with g4. But to be honest, you know, bishop g4 is no big deal. So I just play knight f3. To which he plays knight d7, sort of like a hippo move. Queen d2. And then he plays h6, which again, you know, he's starting to go into these hippo systems. Excuse me, I'm just going to pause the video a second because I'm just getting a call. Hey, sorry about that. People interrupting my video. Okay, where were we? Okay, he's just played h6. To which I actually played a4. The idea of maybe restricting b5 and, you know, keeping a bit of queenside space. I don't think he's going to play b5 anyway. It's a usual sort of modernish move, but you know, he's a hippo player, so he's probably going to want to play b6 anyway, which he did. And now initially I thought I was going to play bishop c4, but then I thought e4 is actually going to come under quite a bit of pressure, so I actually thought the bishop would be better on d3. To which he plays bishop b7. Then I played a funny looking move, which was h3. And it looks like it's not doing very much, but I was slightly worried about that. Basically, my plan in this position, I wanted to play my knight on. I wanted to play c3. I felt it was sort of necessary because he's going to play c5 and trying to, create some weaknesses on d4 maybe. So I thought I'd reroute the knight probably to g3 and play c3 and have a really. It's gonna be difficult for him to really exploit anything on d4, and maybe I could start playing for e5 myself. But the problem is, say for example, if I started that plan now with knight e2 without h3, I was a bit worried he'd play something like knight f6. Then if I play knight g3, he could play knight g4, and suddenly this dark squared bishop's trapped. And I didn't particularly want to give up my dark squared bishop for the knight at this point, so that's why I played h3 here to stop that. Because now I can carry on with that plan, and it's not a particularly fast position, so I think it's worth making 1 or 2 pawn moves to make sure you've got your pieces on the right squares. Anyway, he played e6 again. If he plays knight to e7 now, he's got this sort of atypical hippo setup. So then I did play knight e2, carrying on with this plan. I want to play c3, maybe knight g3. I'd got an idea I might try and play e5 at some point, not straight away. But then again, I mean, I'm fairly flexible. Say if he plays e5, I could maybe play d5 and maybe do something on the queen side. Just remaining flexible, really, not to overcommit, because I thought that was kind of what he was looking for. So he plays, and he actually played knight f6 now. I suppose maybe he was thinking this e pawn was quite weak. Quite often in the hippo they play knight e7, but he played f6. To which I just played knight g3. Before I played knight g3, I mean, obviously it looks like maybe h5 might cause me some difficulties, because the e4 is fairly weak. It's attacked twice and defended twice. So if he tries to boot this knight away with h5, h4, I'm gonna have to go to some lengths to sort of defend. But I actually thought that if he plays h5 now, I can actually just play bishop g5. And that stops h4, and I thought that this would be quite a nice position, so that's why I just went ahead and played knight g3. To that he actually played c5, and because he played c5, this is why I'd rerouted this knight from c3, because I wanted to be able to meet that with c3, and if he takes, that's fine. I'm maintaining my strong centre. I thought. He carried on with queen c7. And I played rook c1, and now he starts. He actually, obviously, he can't castle now because this pawn on h6 would be hanging. So he actually plays king f8 to start manually castling. He could maybe play king g8 and king h7, and then connect rooks that way. And the computer actually suggested d5 instead of king f8. Suggests d5, but I don't know. That's the kind of move I was hoping for, really, because I thought it's blocking his bishop in, and I'm sure I would have definitely met that with e5. Then the computer suggests knight e4. I thought I'd probably play queen e2. You can take on g3. I'd take with the f pawn. Well, it's quite an interesting position. I mean, he's doubled my pawns, but I don't think that's a big deal. I can maybe castle and play down the f file, so I think I'd have been quite happy with this. And again, I don't think he's going to be playing a move like d5 because the pawn structure now is suddenly fixed, and I don't think that's really what he's trying to keep everything flexible. Whereas now, everything's sort of fixed in the centre, and I can sort of begin, definite play rather than just sort of the cat and mouse which we're in at the moment. So anyway, he played king f8, to which I actually played b3, which is a few I mean, it supports a4 obviously, and I also thought at some point if he ever tried to play c4, I can actually meet it with b4 and have the option of keeping it blocked. I mean, obviously you can't play c4 immediately because obviously I've got 2 pieces on that square, but it just gives me a few more options, I thought, later on. And again, I'm still looking at e5 and maybe some kingside play, although I'm not committed to that at all. And he plays king g8, and I castled. To which he played rook e8, and I actually played queen e2 now. Now that the rook's moved, I'm hitting a6, but mainly with queen e2, I'm actually thinking of maybe trying to play this e5 move, and also I'm vacating d2 for the knight. So I mean I quite often do this against these modern setups. I actually play c3 and f3, or I could maybe if the pressure on e4 eases up, maybe I can play f4 myself instead of f3. But just to maintain the centre. So I can also retreat the knight to e2, play either f3 or f4. I thought it was quite a flexible move anyway. He did play queen c8. I was actually expecting this, and then maybe queen a8, and set up what they call the Lasker battery, to maybe pound this square even more. And that's one of the reasons I played this queen across, because I can actually meet that with knight d2. So now if he plays queen a8, I can just play f3 and just maintain my strong centre. And he does play queen a8, and this is quite often a powerful idea when there's not much going on in these sort of positions. We call it the Lasker battery. Just putting the queen and the bishop on the same diagonal. But again, I just play f3, and my centre's fairly super solid, I thought. The one thing with playing f3 and h3, I mean, my dark squares are, I suppose, they are fairly weak around my king, but I didn't think it was such a big deal. And I am getting ready to play e5. I have to be a bit careful, that there's nothing horrible on the dark squares, I suppose. He actually plays bishop f8 now. Yeah, I don't know, he's a bit stuck for moves, I thought, now. Because, he's played c5. Usually he's probably trying to break up my centre by now, but because I've managed to play c3 and f3, I thought I'm keeping hold of this centre. And now I actually thought this was quite a key move. It looks a bit of a weird move, but I actually played bishop f2. Yeah, and if he doesn't play e5 now himself, which I thought perhaps he would, I'm going to play e5 next move. If he doesn't, and then the pawns are getting fixed, and I can concentrate on some definite middle game play. Because at the moment, with the pawn's centre being really flexible, it's difficult to commit to any one plan. Whereas once the pawns get fixed, you can actually start planning with some definite ideas. Perhaps he should play e5 now. I think perhaps I would in his position, but let's see. I mean, if he does play e5, obviously I can't play e5 myself anymore, but I think I could just play d5 and now switch to queenside play. Maybe play b4. Switch rooks to either the b or the c file, whichever one's opens up, and it looks quite a nice position for me. Again, I've got a space advantage, and it seems a nicer position for me to play. But he didn't play e5 in this position. He actually played king h7. So I went ahead and played e5, the move I've been playing for a while. It isn't totally clear. It does. It gets my light squared bishop into the position. It lets his light squared bishop into the position, obviously, and he's gonna be able to get rid of my light squared bishop, because playing e5, it does allow. I can't really stop him playing knight d5 and knight f4, which my light squared bishop is quite a significant bishop. It's definitely my better bishop, so I don't really want to get rid of it. But having said that, especially if he plays d5 himself, I thought the position is going to be more knight friendly than bishop friendly, and also it's allowing my knight to come to c4. So I don't know, it's an interesting move. If he wants, he can have my light square bishop, and I'm going to have a knight for it. And he does. He goes